All right, grab your popcorn and buckle up, because we're diving into Tucker and Dale versus Evil, a horror comedy that completely flips genre expectations on their head. In most slasher films, the villain is exactly who you think they are. But here, the real antagonist isn't the creepy-looking hillbillies, it's Chad, played by Jesse Moss, the stereotypical college bro who goes full-blown psychopath. Chad is what happens when someone takes a trip to the woods and doesn't know how to not overreact. He's that overzealous guy who thinks life is a constant battle between good and evil. And of course, he's sure he's on the right side. But here's the twist. He's completely deluded. Chad and his friends head to the woods for a carefree getaway. But when they run into Tucker and Dale, two well-meaning hillbillies, Chad instantly assumes the worst. From that moment on, he's convinced these two country bumpkins are cold-blooded killers. What follows is a series of hilariously tragic misunderstandings. Chad's group believes they're in a horror movie, but in reality, Tucker and Dale are just two good old boys trying to fix up their vacation home. It's just that people keep accidentally dying around them. This setup flips the classic Friday the 13th style horror trope. Normally, we'd expect the guys in flannel and overalls to be the killers, but here, they're just minding their own business while an entitled college kid goes on a warpath. Chad is the ultimate example of toxic masculinity, rude, aggressive, and completely unhinged. In a traditional slasher, he'd be the jerk jock who gets taken out early for being insufferable, but instead, he becomes the villain. He's the kind of guy who loves talking about manly things, like chopping wood or how tough he is. But the second things go sideways, he turns into a dude who would literally pick a fight with a tree just because it looked at him funny. What makes Chad so fascinating is that he embodies classic horror cliches while completely misinterpreting his role. He sees himself as the hero, the last survivor, the final guy. But the irony? Tucker and Dale are the least dangerous people in the movie. Meanwhile, Chad, obsessed with proving his dominance, ends up getting his own friends killed in increasingly ridiculous ways. His black and white good versus evil mindset makes him dangerously blind to reality. Every one of Chad's villainous acts comes from a complete lack of critical thinking. Every time he misreads a situation, someone dies, making him one of the most accidentally deadly horror antagonists in recent memory. Take the moment when Chad sees one of his friends impaled on a tree after a wild series of accidents. Instead of stopping to think, he immediately assumes Tucker and Dale did it. This is where the film plays brilliantly with horror tropes. Normally, the survivors slowly realize they're in danger, but Chad, he thinks he already knows the truth, so he creates the danger himself. Chad has a full-blown meltdown and completely loses it. It's perfect. He's so obsessed with proving his manliness and heroism that he ends up looking more like a slasher villain than a survivor. Unlike a cold, calculating killer, Chad is just a guy whose insecurity and paranoia explode into pure chaos. One of the funniest and scariest things about Chad is his complete lack of self-awareness. For all his bravado, he's deeply insecure. He thinks that by acting violently and aggressively, he'll gain respect. But in reality, he's just scared. And that fear fuels every disastrous decision he makes. This makes Chad the perfect satire of classic horror villains. He's constantly trying to justify himself, which only makes him more dangerous. So, how does Chad rank in the world of horror villains? In terms of effectiveness, not great. He's driven by fear, not strategy, which means his plans are chaotic at best. That said, I'd give Chad a 6/10 as a villain. Why? Because even though his schemes always fall apart and he's hilariously over the top, he makes you laugh and cringe in equal measure. Plus, he's a perfect example of how miscommunication and paranoia can spiral into full-blown horror. Chad isn't just a villain. He's a cautionary tale about the dangers of assumption, fear, and unchecked masculinity. And in a horror comedy like Tucker and Dale vs. Evil, that makes him the perfect antagonist. So, there you have it. Chad, the ultimate mix of misguided masculinity and fear-based villainy. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more horror analysis. Because just like Chad, we're here to destroy expectations, but in the funniest way possible. And remember, don't be a Chad.